Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for the Marvel standalone movies. So since I was reviewing all of the Marvel films in clumps, depending on what part of the series they were, I knew that there were going to be some Marvel films that have not gotten a sequel and have not gotten a spin-off, so I was going to clump them all together in one review. In this review, we will be going over 4 movies, and those movies are Doctor Strange, Spider-Man Homecoming, The Incredible Hulk, and Black Panther. So I'll start off chronologically with The Incredible Hulk. So this movie came out in 2008, and rather than having Mark Ruffalo play the Hulk, they had Edward Norton, who later backed out of his picture deal. So in this one, it follows the story of a man who is living in Mexico at a bottle factoring machine, but he knows that he has these special abilities where he can, when he gets angry, turn into a green monster known as the Hulk, and he's extremely strong, he's extremely large. He's trying to get away from that life, but when something goes awry and he is back in the United States, he has to use his Hulk powers to try to take down Abomination, who is another figure like Hulk that is coming to wreak havoc. So The Incredible Hulk is a very, very outdated movie. It came out back in 2008. This was the second movie in the MCU, and for some reason we haven't gotten another Hulk movie since then. I have been clamoring for one forever. I was hoping that maybe instead of Captain Marvel, we would get a Hulk sequel, or maybe instead of Black Panther. I just really wanted another movie, especially with Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, because watching this with Edward Norton as the Hulk, it doesn't even feel like it's in the same universe. Like, it feels like it's a completely own separate thing. That's one of my problems with this movie. My other, I mentioned earlier, is very outdated, very, very much so. You can tell it feels very strongly like a 2008 movie, and that took me out of it sometimes, but honestly, I don't have a whole lot of problems with The Incredible Hulk. At least, I don't have as much as everyone else does, because people complain constantly about how they hate this movie, and they say that it's one of the worst movies in the MCU. I like it. I think that it's fairly entertaining, honestly, and I thought that maybe watching it again, now being older and more mature, I might not find it as entertaining as I did when I was younger, but honestly, it's still the same movie to me. It's nothing great, obviously. It's very problematic, but it's also very entertaining. I was not bored for a single second during this movie. It kept my interest the entire time. And I think that Edward Norton does a good job as Hulk, and I wish either he would have stayed on it or that Mark Ruffalo would have done this film, because the character development that they do for the Hulk is fairly good. It sets him up fairly well so that you understand what it's like for him to have to live the way he does with all that aggression and anger. I will say one of my problems is that the villains in this movie are really, really weak. I only remember that William Hurt plays a villain. That's literally the only thing that I remember. I can't remember what their motives were. I know Abomination's in it. That's about it. And also, the action in this movie is very, very bad. That's also kind of why I want a new Hulk movie, so that we can get some good CGI Hulk action, but we probably won't get that with Endgame coming up. I'm predicting that Hulk is going to die, so he has another picture in his contract deal, so maybe he won't. Maybe he'll make another appearance in another Thor movie or something. I don't know. But as of right now, I don't think that the Hulk is going to get a sequel. This is the Hulk movie that we're getting. And unfortunately, it's not great, but I still find it entertaining. I will give The Incredible Hulk a 6 out of 10. Alright, now we are on to Doctor Strange. So this movie is far more recent. It came out in 2016, and it is going to get a sequel at some point. I think in 2020 or 2021 it's getting a sequel. So something is in the works so that this movie will not be a standalone, but as of right now it is. So Doctor Strange is a movie that follows the story of Stephen Strange, who is a doctor who works on people medically. He's amazing at his job, and one day he spins out in a car and he breaks his hands. He can't operate on anyone anymore, so he tries to go to learn how he can fix his hands, and he ends up in the mystic arts area, I don't know what it's called, with Tilda Swinton and a bunch of other people who deal in this type of magic that is very surreal, very hard to understand, and he learns about it and tries to become great at the magic while also trying to get back the life he once had. Doctor Strange was one of the weaker MCU movies from what I remember. I saw it back when it came out in 2016, opening weekend. I was there. I was super excited for it. And it wasn't great. It was fine. I just honestly found it kind of boring and kind of repetitive. So I really didn't know what I was going into when I watched it again. But I liked it. I still feel very strong hesitations towards it, and I think it could have been so much better if a few things had happened, but it's still an entertaining movie. It's still well put together. It keeps that entertaining pace that all the Marvel movies have, other than the first two Thor movies, and I never really got bored watching it. My biggest problem is that it doesn't do anything special. Like I was saying, I've said it 100 times by now probably, but each Marvel movie, starting with Captain America the Winter Soldier, started going off with their own kind of genre. And the problem here is that Doctor Strange doesn't have its own type of genre. This easily could have been a martial arts type movie. This could have been a mystic drug trip type movie, but it wasn't any of that. It was just a straight up superhero origin story, and I've seen that so many times at this point that I'm kind of numb to it, and I can't really find it entertaining anymore, and that was the problem with Doctor Strange. Besides that, I mean, you've got some of MCU's best performances in this, like not Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumberbatch is great as Doctor Strange. Tilda Swinton is also great in the role that she plays, and I don't know the actor's name, but the guy who plays Wong in it is great. I think his name is maybe Benedict Wong, but I could be getting that wrong. But he's great in it, and all the performances, the ensemble in this film is generally really, really strong. And also, this is one of Marvel's most visually appealing movies. Other than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I'd say that this one is the most visually appealing movie in the MCU. It's just very fun to watch, especially the opening scene with the buildings folding into each other. It's super weird, but it's very, very well thought out and well planned. So in the end, Doctor Strange isn't great. It's a forgettable MCU movie, but watching it again, I was able to find more enjoyment in it. I will give Doctor Strange a 6.5 out of 10. Alright, so now we are on to Spider-Man Homecoming. So this is the 6th Spider-Man movie that we got within, I think it was like a 15-year time frame or something like that. It's crazy that this is the 3rd adaptation of Spider-Man. And we got it. It came out. It followed the story of Spider-Man while he was still in high school. He was actually a sophomore in high school. He was only 15 years old, so that's the youngest that they've ever taken him. And they cast a really young actor in it. They cast Tom Holland. And it follows the story of Spider-Man after he's kind of learned that he got his powers. They don't really go through the spidery type stuff. It's just him. He already has it. You already know the story. You don't need to know it again. And it follows him as he's just being an average high schooler and feeling the responsibility to be Spider-Man and to save as many people as he can. Now, Spider-Man Homecoming is one of my favorite MCU movies. I'll say that right now. And this one takes on a genre that I love. It's a superhero movie, but it also takes on the coming of age genre. And I love the way that these two genres were intertwined, especially how they showed a coming-of-age movie within the MCU. Like all the videos with Captain America, talking to the students, or the conversations that the students would have about the different superheroes, all that kind of stuff was cool, and it helped with the same thing that I think Shazam helped with. Shazam brought you into the world of DC and helped you kind of explore what it's like from our perspective, from the people who aren't superheroes, from the average person. And that's kind of what Spider-Man Homecoming did for me. It brought you into the world, and it was a well-established world, and it brought you into it, and you got to understand more about the world outside of the superheroes. And I love that element. Besides that, I think Spider-Man Homecoming has some great action in it. I think it has some great quippy dialogue in it. I think it has some great performances in it. Overall, it's just a well-rounded MCU movie. If I were to have problems with it, I'd say it feels a little long. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes or something, and it did not need to be that long. There's quite a few parts that you could have cut out, but I still liked this movie quite a bit, honestly. And I think that they portrayed high school the best that they could have with a PG-13 rating. high school is very R-rated. I'm sure anyone who's ever gone to high school will tell you that. So the fact that they couldn't get an R rating, obviously they'd never be able to tell the Spider-Man movie sometimes makes the high school feel too innocent. But besides that, I still like it. I will give Spider-Man Homecoming a 7.5 out of 10. Alright, next up is my review for Black Panther. So, this movie came out back in 2018. It's a very recent Marvel film. And back when it came out, I originally didn't like it much at all. I thought that it was a very sloppy movie. I thought it was very slow, it was very boring, and I never got very immersed in it. As time has gone on, I've grown a bit with Black Panther. I think understanding its messages and understanding more about what people liked about it, I started seeing some of the positives in it. I still don't think Black Panther is one of the better MCU movies. I think it's fine. It's perfectly fine the way that it is. It's nothing super special though. What I admire about Black Panther is its villain, because the MCU has always had problems with villains that aren't entertaining, that are sloppily put together, that feel like an afterthought with the hero. But honestly, what I liked about this Marvel film is that they make the morals of the villain justified, and they make it the type of question that you as an audience member yourself are asking before he even shows up on screen. And when he shows up on screen, you feel this conflicting thing. You're like, do I side with Black Panther, the hero of the story, or do I side with Killmonger, who, while he is going through radical ways of trying to get what he wants, is not incorrect and is actually probably more right than Black Panther in terms of what he wants. And the film does a great job at bringing in the politics of the MCU, helping out, you know, weaker countries throughout Africa. That's a huge deal for Wakanda, especially because they're open now. And does ethnicity and does ethnicity and race tie you to another species to the point that, or another race or ethnicity, to the point that you should give them funding and you should help them get out of their crisis? It's a political question that has plagued nations since probably back in the 1500s, or when countries really started emerging. And I love the way that they incorporated that theme into Black Panther without making it feel like it's a political propaganda piece. Black Panther, though, still, I think, suffers from the entertainment factor. I really don't think that this is a very entertaining MCU movie, unfortunately. I wanted it to be very bad, but I still felt like it was too long. I still felt like I wanted it to be over, like, as soon as it started. So it's not a great MCU movie, but I'm starting to understand a bit more behind why people like it, because of the performances, the looks, but especially because of the message of the film. I will give Black Panther a 6.25 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for the Marvel standalone movies. So, tell me, what are your thoughts on all these movies, or how would you rank them among the MCU? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I will say, personally, for me, I would put Spider-Man Homecoming pretty high up there. I think Guardians and a couple Avengers movies and probably the first Iron Man is before it, but it's still pretty high up there. And then I'd say Doctor Strange and Incredible Hulk and Black Panther are all in the lower echelon of Marvel films. I am excited, though, for sequels for Doctor Strange and Black Panther. I think there's some very interesting directions you can go, which we will learn when we see Endgame. But anyways, that concludes my review. I am Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.